for me to ask questions here tonight?
Anytime you want to, yeah.
Yeah, we wait.
Put your name on the list.
They're not gonna walk away. They'll come back to the board.
We have to.
But
Coordinate your mind with your own.
did it, and then got the fastest plane heading out of here to where
There you go.
But the one I want, I got it on now.
It is.
Turn it on your time. I guess Thomas is ready to go.
Okay. Get to the second one.
Your
Go
job.
get the engineer. Where's that?
That's the end of it right there.
Yeah, there's so much of them.
make a motion to adjourn.
Not that easy. What? Can't do it.
Not that much.
Okay. Hey, everybody signed in the one to address the commission workshop? And everybody signed in the one to address the public hearing on the food grant? Okay. All right.
What? Public hearing on cupcakes?
Yeah.
Who brought cupcakes and why?
Well, we'll tell you that in just a minute.
Birthdays.
Okay.
Because you didn't.
Mine's already passed.
Closing out.
Like we did on church.
Okay.
We should have brought you.
You got everybody's
We should have brought you a
attendance?
crown to wear.
No, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Out of work.
All right.
I know you would.
I'm going to call the Loudon County Commission workshop to order. Before we start the workshop, we have to go through a public hearing on the food insecurities grant. But before we get to that, I'd like to recognize John Cardwell from the Loudon City Council. We've got a couple birthdays on the commission, that's why the cupcakes are here. Chase Randolph, William Jenkins, happy birthday. Happy birthday to
Are
you.
y'all related? Was you born on the same day? Or we need more details.
Okay.
Twins, they're twins.
Mitch Loomis, tell us about the grant.
I thought you was gonna make Aaron speak.
No, Aaron's,
Oh, man.
I was speaking, I guess, so. Yeah, I'm Mitch Lewis with the East Tennessee Development District, and the state of Tennessee is part of the, some of their, COVID monies that they got from HUD and everything. They were coming up with different programs and how they could actually, give it out to counties to try to help counties in different areas. One of the areas was they came out with a grant that would allow any food providers for equipment only. So you could get, food, but you could get equipment. And the grant had to actually go through the county. So we've actually have a resolution that's already been passed by you guys that you guys are interested in being part of this. Today was the public hearing to see if there's any other food providers that would potentially have some needs for equipment. I know I've already talked to Melanie Dykes with a Good Samaritan of Loudon County, and she has gave me a list of equipment that they could use. One of the biggest ones was the transportation van. They said if we could get a transportation van, that would really help us in order to get, food out to other providers, and so that's one of the things we're looking at. And then she also had some minor equipment, shelving and all that kind of stuff. So she was looking at roughly probably about $70,000 or $80,000 that she said she could use. I did talk to her since then, and I said, now if you have any needs for, she also had a couple of freezers that she needed too. So that's where we're kind of at right now, but this is a grant that will actually, the deadline is January the 31st. And then after the deadline, we will turn that into the state. They have $10 million that they can give out statewide. Of course, you got 95 counties, but all the counties will not qualify. They actually listed which counties had what they called LMI communities, and Loudon, of course, had, City of Loudon, Lenore City, and Philadelphia listed as 3 areas that they saw as needs. So you definitely qualify, and all we have to do is really just put the application together, submit it to the state, and, you know, I would think that we would get our portion of the money. Now, how this would work is, once you, if it gets approved, the money is actually goes through Loudon County, because it's your grant. Now, so if we decided on the van, if your policy says, okay, if it's a van for $85,000, we have to go out for bids, then that's what we'll do. You know, as a development district, we would help you make sure that we follow all the state's guidelines according to also your guidelines. So, we would take care of that for you guys. And, once that's done, once you get that, like for instance, if it's that van, once you get that van, then you would, determine what you're gonna do. You would turn that over to Good Samaritan, and how that happens, I don't know how that happens as far as finance, how you guys can turn over stuff like that. But you have that option, or you can say, you know, no, we're gonna keep control of that van, but they can use it. That's something that you guys would decide on that part. And we would not have to know that for the grant itself right now.
You would, Aaron, would they go through the state contract to buy a van?
We can, we definitely can.
Okay.
We don't have to, but we can.
Getting it to them is gonna be, take a little work.
Okay.
So is that, Tracy, I'm gonna call you out, is the grant or the request that he's speaking of, is that the one that I sent to you from the Good Samaritan Center at Lenore
I
City?
think it is.
Yes.
Anybody? Okay, good, okay,
It is. It's the
okay,
same.
perfect,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak for or against the grant?
I think it's pretty amazing. It's gonna help a
Yeah,
lot
no,
of,
it is
lot
good
of
that they
people
would
in
want
Loudon
to
County.
do this, because I think it'll help some people that say, you know what, this definitely helps us to be
Oh,
able to provide
absolutely.
more people with food.
Anything else?
What do you, so I'm assuming it's a competitive grant.
It is a competitive
Will the
grant.
stress counties, will they get first dibs or?
They, of course, they always do, to some degree. But the fact that, like I said, they have $10 million and, they have shown 3 of your communities as LMI communities, that's gonna help out a whole lot. Now, if you were sitting there saying, guys, you didn't have anything listed as LMI, but we can make an application, then I don't know how this is gonna go. So I feel pretty good. I mean, I'm not the one who makes the final call, but I feel pretty good about it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing on the food grant, and we'll move on to the county commission agenda. What I'm gonna do in the interest of Jim Jenkins, I'm gonna let him go first, and then we have 2 public comments. Jim, come on up to the podium. Take us through your 4 amendments.
All right, item A is a resolution amending the Loudon County zoning resolution, Article 5, Section 5.046, M1 General Industrial District pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated Section 137105. This has been from November. This is our high-density data centers, Bitcoin mining facilities. Recommendation was to put them in the M1 zoning district as a special exception. And then those facilities would also basically be a liquid cooled type facility, which is, causing, takes the noise out of it for the most part, a lot less noise.
Any comments? Okay, go to B.
This is a resolution amending the municipal and regional subdivision regulations of Loudon County, Philadelphia, Greenback, and the planning regions of Lenore City and Loudon, Article 5, Development Prerequisite to Final Approval, C, Stormwater Controls. So in our current standard, we design post, development, runoff, detention structures at 25 years. This takes that from 25 to 100 years. It also does not allow them to be placed in the special flood hazard area. As I understand, I think municipalities, Knoxville, Knox County, Lenore City, Maryville, Blount County, I believe, are already doing this, so this recommendation was sent down from this commission, and planning commission voted to, recommend it. The next one is the same for the zoning, so you have that in subdivision regulations. This is, the next item C is the sections that are required to be changed in the zoning resolution.
Due to the
Mirror
20,
that.
your retention pond.
Detention ponds, and it's the same verbiage, just different sections. Item D is a resolution amending the zoning map, Loudon County, Tennessee, pursuant to Chapter 7, 13-7-105 Tennessee Code Annotated, to rezone from A2 Rural Residential District to C2 General Commercial District, Loudon County Tax Map 025, parcel 009.00, located at Interstate Lane, Loudon County, Tennessee, situated in the 5th Legislative District.
Mr. Chairman, that was mine, that was ours, mine and Joe's in the 5th District. Planning Commission, I think unanimously recommended denial of that request. Speaking for myself, that will also be what I would like to see. It's not the appropriate place. Every neighbor down there was opposed to it, so there's no services to speak of, there's no sewer. They had talked about, might do a motel, might do building storage buildings, didn't really know what. So anyhow, it was turned down. Hopefully we'll do the same.
All of those on February 6th commission meeting?
Thank you.
But
They'll
real
be
quick,
there.
I got a few things just to knock them off. I would like to have the planning commission meetings recorded.
And what do we need to do that?
I don't know. That's the mayor's.
We're working on it. We can, it's easy enough to program it to come on.
Correct.
Turning it off's the problem, right?
Well, just flip the switch.
Somebody to flip the switch or
Somebody's gotta do it.
Well, it's not hard to flip the
make
switch.
sure that one of our IT guys is watching. Yeah, we had planned on starting that up.
So if it's just a matter of flipping the switch in the hall.
It stays on all the time now.
Okay.
It's a remote switch. It has to be flipped.
We can program it to start if somebody would turn it off on the way out. That's what we need.
Just let us know what to do.
Then we just discussed retention bonds. Also, thank you for, I know that we always share our agendas for planning with both cities. And I know that that's not the case from Lenore City, so thank you for requesting that. And then D, we'll just deal with later. So
And
thank
Loudon
you.
City has emailed back that you all should be on their list.
Perfect. Has Lenore City?
She hadn't responded.
Perfect.
I'm sure Beth will take care of that.
Thank you.
Jim, you stay for duration of the planning commission, BZA and all that?
Do what now?
Do you stay for the duration of the planning and all
I
that?
do, yeah.
But would you be willing to flip that switch on your way out the door?
Sure.
Okay.
Just one in the hall.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, I mean, there's a switch in the hall.
There,
You
the
put
hall in the hall by,
You have to
Yeah,
turn it on.
I'll put a note on my hand.
And this
No
remote will
worries.
turn the camera off. You can get with me tomorrow and I'll show you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Y'all have a
okay,
good.
thank you, Jim.
Jim, I'm gonna ask you to hang around just 1 second.
I'll do it.
One of our folks that wanted to speak had a question, I don't know for us or for Jim, about the, Bitcoin mining stuff. I don't know how your list of public commenters are. Mr. Leach was the one that had questions for it. I don't know where he's at on
He's
that
second
list.
on the list.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Well,
Okay.
wait a minute.
Public comments. Pat Hunter, you're up.
He could go before me since he has a question, Mr. Leach.
Well, it's the way you signed up.
I know, but he could go first.
I'm
Mr.
happy to go
Leach?
first. I can be done real quick, probably.
Come on.
All right, so I was here, last couple of meetings. This won't be as long as those where if you'll bear with me. I was out of town. I didn't know about public comments about the crypto mining thing. I got some questions that probably he can handle, so I'm not gonna bore you with the questions. I can ask him, he can answer them for me. I did wanna say that in lieu of not having my questions answered, there's a couple concerns I have based on my limited understanding of what we're talking about doing here. And this may be common, I'm new at this, but it sounds like we're considering, or I'm gonna call it regulation, maybe there's a better word for it. A regulation that points at a specific industry and tells them how to do what they're wanting to do. When it would seem to me more appropriate, and again, I may be confused, you'll straighten me out in a minute. It may be more appropriate that there be a noise level, acceptable level of noise, and just tell businesses when they show up, hey, that's the deal, you figure out how to do it. It sounds like we're imposing on a business or a company or facility a method or a process as opposed to letting the market figure that out. And I believe markets can figure those things out. Again, there's some other questions I had that I can do with that. If it is about the noise, I said that. And has anyone in the process, again, I missed public comments, I think there was a public comment period or something. Has anybody looked into the additional cost this may put on the business? As opposed to, I know there's some stories out there about fans blowing and making a bunch of noise, people not wanting the noise. But has anybody addressed that or looked into that as a part of this to figure out if this is something that really has cost to the building of that facility?
I can answer these questions, Jim, you welcome to stay or not. This came about by complaints up where we have one. Have you ever been up to the one we got? Have you seen it? We had one that just slid in, we had no regulations whatsoever. We have regulations all over the place where certain kind of businesses can locate. This is the old style that is the fan type Bitcoin mining, and it is loud. It's like jet engines. And in an industrial area where it's at, it's fine, but it's right on the backside of Brandywine subdivision. That's where my first concerns were brought to me. So after we started looking at what other people were doing, how it was being handled in other places, because Granger County, somewhere they went into full-blown lawsuit because it was such a problem.
Jefferson County too,
Where was
Jefferson County.
somewhere up that way, it was a bad situation. All farmland, but people could hear it for miles. So what my idea, what we ultimately did was to go proactive before we had any more. This one's where it's at. There's nothing we can do with that. But going forward, any new ones would have to be located in an industrial zone. And according to the people we talked to that know this, they're all leaving the fan type and going to the liquid cooler because the noise is always the problem. So that's where all the ideal generated. It came from a problem we already have and trying to avoid it from having another one.
Okay, I'll have some detail-oriented questions, maybe I'll get with you later.
Sure.
I appreciate you.
No problem.
Filling me in on that, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Hunter, you're up.
My name is Pat Hunter, and tonight, I would like to just present a letter from the Public Records Commission with regards to two nominations that we are recommending to the county mayor. We know that it's nothing more than a recommendation, but we feel that these two additions would be welcomed on the Public Records Commission. One is Miss Nancy Surratt Gregg, and if you look at her background, she has a long background in historical preservation, grant writing, and just a host of experience. And we feel that she would be a welcome addition. We do not have an archives. However, we are maybe one of 6 counties, countywide, statewide, that does not have an archives. It is the county mayor that shall appoint a archives manager. She would be serving as an archivist. She has said that she is volunteering her time. She's not asking for any compensation. She's doing it strictly for the love of the preservation of our community's records. And we feel that she would be a very welcome addition. The other person is from Mr. Satterfield's district. I don't know Ms. McCollum, but the county historian has spoken with her, and she says that she will serve. I think, we just finished the inventory. Thank you, Mr. Shaver, Mr. Waller. It was a team effort, and we finished the rest of the inventory. It's been a long period that it took to actually get that done. As a Public Records Commission, we oversee the inventory. The actual records custodians, those that generate the records, the county clerk, the trustee, they are the true custodians of the records. So it did take a while to get the inventory done, but we finished it last Thursday. Roughly 18 pallets of records have been sent to be cleaned and restored. The records themselves were in good condition. except for the exterior, they had mold. And that is gonna require, well, it's gonna require more than the average cleaning. It's going to, I think they're gonna go to Texas to be cleaned. We received an estimate roughly of $114,000 to clean the records. We're gonna come in under that because the actual number of records that they sent were far less than what the original estimate was. I think the one thing that I see as a very positive move is that we have volunteers all over the county that are willing to spend their time to help with the archives. So if you're concerned about big budgets, I'm here to tell you, we have an army of people who are volunteering already. With an archivist, that would be very helpful. We have someone else that is very knowledgeable when it comes to training volunteers on how to do the archives, work with the archives. We have someone who's willing to help us with that. Also with the digitizing and with the actual, I guess not, it's not record keeping, but to keep track of all the records that will have to be sorted and cataloged, that's the word. So we have quite a few volunteers. What we don't have is a place. And I go back to my original comment. If the county doesn't want to put money into building a facility, we have the old courthouse where the records were stored for over 100 years. That courthouse was the home of 6 office holders until 4 moved from the old courthouse here. Now we have only 2 office holders that are going to occupy the entire courthouse. So all we need is some space. We have volunteers, and I'm hoping that this county commission will bring back to the community what it so richly deserves, and that is to have an archives facility that everyone in the community can enjoy, and you know, future generations can enjoy this information that can be passed on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
We also need to thank Tammy and Riley upstairs. They were there the whole day on Thursday, as long as we were there from 9.
You can't stop Billy Pickle come and talk to
Oh,
everybody the whole time. He didn't do nothing, but he spent a lot of time
Yes, he
talking.
did. He went through some stuff. Oh, the mayor came by for a picture.
He should be in the paper tomorrow. Brian Schmidt was there.
He was there.
He didn't do nothing.
And Historian Tuck was there
Right,
as well.
Darryl Tuck.
So.
Okay, Mayor Bradshaw.
Teamwork.
Chairman, right, got me discombobulated. The first, I guess we'll start out with, Matt, you'll come up to the podium, please. Most of y'all know him, this is Matt Kleinschmidt. Matt is a Philadelphia guy, so that takes it up a notch right there. Matt is a Loudon High School graduate, played football for me 4 years of high school. He worked with our community centers while he worked through college. He has a bachelor's degree in business. And it would be my request to this commission that we would appoint him, or recommend my appointment and back my appointment for procurement director for Loudon County. He is mature beyond his years. We actually harass him a little bit.
Is there another one? Is there another Matt Kleinschmidt, or is he the only one?
Detail oriented, and I tell you, this young man, you know, in high school, he paid house that for me when I went on vacation. That's how much I trust him. And so that would be my request to this commission. He's open for any questions. And a 10-minute introduction speech, right?
Just say go Panthers and you'll get my vote.
Don't know if I can do that.
You'll lose mine.
Buddy, I'll add that to the commission meeting on February 6th for a vote.
Then the board committees, and those are all listed there. The one is EDA. I've talked to both Commissioner Whitfield and Commissioner Jeans. One of them would rather have it than I'm open for it. Kind of balances it out versus this in the county and that in the county. We're on the EDA board. And
you have a problem there, I'll jump in and take that.
Huh.
I'm good,
I
thank
can
you.
hang it in the A board.
I've been threatened.
I'm not gonna pick on Bill, I'd tip toward Gary if he wants it, just cause he's the senior of the two. But that's your call, we'll vote on whoever you come up with.
You know, I was gonna say, we'll vote on who you decide you wanna put in there.
Okay.
Paper, rock, scissors?
But you're a senior if you prefer it.
I mean, I'm willing to serve on the board.
Okay. And then the rest are listed there.
Where'd Matt go? He's supposed to. You gotta go again, doesn't
Well, is there any questions on any of these? And Joe, I promise, I'm not sliding the let you get your feet wet a little bit, you'll get plenty come this next.
we do it every September.
That's great.
Okay.
Replacement of adult entertainment.
That's it? Okay, Matt, you get to come back up on your copier lease.
Got, one multi-year contract for a copier at the sheriff's office. This is a new machine. It's 60 months at $82.21 per month. And then we've got a, same 60-month copier lease for $108.28 at Steaky Elementary School. This machine was actually damaged. We're replacing a machine that was actually damaged in the flooding, and insurance is buying that one out, and this will replace that one. And then we have a TSBA District Policy Manual Maintenance Agreement. This is for 3 years for $3,500 each year, and it advises the school board on policy changes with the state and helps them update their policy changes. I appreciate that.
That'd be paying for it out of the Board of Ed money, right?
Yes.
Why the price difference in those two colors?
Yeah.
Copies.
Um,
Or multi-use stock.
So the school copier has a finisher, paper feeder, document processor. The one at the sheriff's office is just a multi-function copy machine. Doesn't have those, and it's not quite.
Matt, do they still, the companies that we rent them from, as far as copy usage, do they allow, is it, they used to, you got so many,
Paper copy.
Yeah.
or you got so many free copies, and then after you pass the number, you had to pay?
Yeah, so we prepay a certain amount of copies,
Mhm.
and we worked with the companies to come up with a set number. We prepay those at a certain rate. If they go over, we don't get charged an overage fee, but we do have to pay for those copies, each copy we go over. So it's not any extra fee, it's just that copy we use. And copy toner and repairs are included in that, so we don't have to pay for toner, repairs, anything. It's just all included in those copies.
Any other questions for Matt?
Y'all may not know this, I've got to share this, buddy. Buddy's our county mayor. Anita is the vice mayor. Chris Park is the second vice mayor, and Kleinschmidt is third vice mayor. So just to make sure everybody knows where you belong in the pecking order, he's third vice mayor. So he's a little higher up the chain, you might think.
Thank you for that information, Commissioner Shaver.
Yeah.
Matt, those will be on the February 6th commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Loudon Road Superintendent Billy Pickle.
He's the titular head of the Republican Party in Loudon County. Got more votes than any other candidate on the ballot.
All right, I think Timmy got everything out to you all. These are some housekeeping items that I know one of them you all are used to taking care of is on the road list. And I wrote an explanation about the road list and on the inventory sheet that has to be turned in to you all, upon office holding change. If there's any questions on those, I've got the third, explanation on the third. Be glad to talk to you about that.
I like this list, thank you.
This is the road list you're gonna submit for February 6th?
Yes. And as CTAS gets our system moved over, we'll be able to physically add these roads that I put on this copy. I'll be able to add them into that list, along with any others that may come about between now and then. But the system's locked out right now, so I can't add them.
I don't see the long in
Well, we'll put them on February 6th for a vote to accept them.
Okay. The other thing about that logo, that was, like I mentioned in the cover sheet, that is mainly just to be put into the minutes for historical purposes. So that somebody like myself goes looking through minutes trying to find something about the highway department, that'll be there for them to find.
Go ahead, Tammy. Here, Bill,
Oh, okay.
There you go.
tell them what that is.
That is the flag of Loudon County. That was voted on November 17th, 1969. The description was all that was put into the minutes of what the county flag should look like. The county seal was also mentioned in those same minutes. It was right before the centennial celebration. And when I was meeting with Commissioner Shaver over some other things, the seal came up that we're using on our highway department vehicles, and I told him about discovering that in some old minutes during my own time looking for something else. But that's what it would look like if one had ever been produced. I think, Mr. Cardwell, I think I've talked to you about this flag before. As far as I can find in 4 or 5 years of looking for it, there was never one actually made. So.
That's, Sarah, my wife did this off of the minutes Billy sent, and the seal on the right is the coat of arms for the Earl of Loudon. That's the coat of arms for Earl of Loudon. And whoever the Campbell guy was that came here under the authority of the Earl of Loudon and established Fort Loudon Fort. So that's where it all comes back from, but that's where they got it. I don't think it's that pretty, but that's what the minutes call for, just exactly what you see right there. It's white background with Tennessee in the corner, just like it is right there, but the big seal is the Earl of Loudon's seal.
Okay.
Except we spell Loudon our way, and they spell it with a U.
D-O-U-N.
Now, if you look at, and I know people here are ready to go, I can geek out over stuff like this all night, but that seal, with the maiden and the knight there, that little banner up above says, "I bide my time," TYME. The Loudon, County, Virginia, also uses that same different coloring. The coloring of Loudon County, Tennessee is described as being that green and crimson. But their little banner says, "I bide thy time," rather than "I bide my time." So there is a difference between.
I think it makes it sound a little lazy, don't it? Biding the time, man. We'll be all right.
Well, let's give out time.
Anyhow, I just wanted you to see it, Billy Pickle.
Thank you.
I think we're to make it sound, should we have a county flag?
Billy, they'll be on February
Or we
6th.
vote for another one. That's a lot prettier.
Those items will be on February 6th commission meeting.
Have a county flag?
Okay.
We'll have our own.
No,
I'll
we're-
see.
Okay, Commissioner Satterfield.
My turn?
Yep.
To alleviate the
File of paper.
volume of paper that we generate every time we have a meeting, twice a month, and any other time, I thought it might, I think it was, maybe it's time that we use either a laptop or iPad to put this paperwork on. When I first came on board, I thought, well, I'm gonna keep all that, and then I ran out of room in one building, and I decided, well, that's not a very good way of doing it, so I think it'd help us be able to hold on to the information as we navigate through the year, and plus, like I said, make it easier to access as we go through the meeting instead of standing here going, You know, it's like trying to find a church hymn in church. They've already sung the first verse before you can get there. But, just my idea, just a suggestion, we think about having the commission furnished with iPads or laptops for commission business.
Matt, can you, get us some prices?
Is it gonna be mandatory on all of us, or is it just if you want one? I
Well,
don't care for one. I'm real analog,
I know you like the paper and you can get that, but I'm just,
so we can do either or.
well,
I mean, if anybody wants one, I say all more power to you. Somebody's gotta put it all on. I guess you can just get it right off
what
our,
do you do with all this? Do you store it?
some of it I keep and some of it I don't. I've got since 2002, yeah.
Where do you put it at?
I've got places, boxes and boxes and boxes
Do
of
you
it.
use the goat house out there for your?
There's some of it you need, there's some of it you don't need. Minutes, agendas never go away. I keep those forever. Some of those, redundant budget things, I don't keep those forever. That's what the
I'm
majority
just
of it
thinking
is.
if I wanted to look back, what did we do last month? You know, instead of having to go.
What's so nice nowadays as opposed to the old days is we can always go to the website and find it. I have learned probably to rely too much. I still have my box each year of stuff,
Speaking of
but
websites.
I'll go to the website.
Anyhow, that's just my thought. I think it'd be a good
I think if
idea.
anybody wants them, I think that's a fine plan.
Looking through the packet, I saw that was a request, and I get 64 gigabyte iPads for, no more than $450 each.
Wow.
So, and I'm confident I can get them for less than that off contract, so.
That's a lot of memory too.
64 gigabytes.
So Tammy be able to push a button and send us everything, right, Tammy?
True.
Well, it would just be like being our internet, right?
Just go like your email.
Yeah.
The other option is 256 for 600, but I can get that for less than that too.
We voted tonight to increase our ability down here in this building, something that you all handling in capital projects.
Wi-Fi.
The switches or Wi-Fi or something, we voted to spend money to upgrade all this and make it better.
Well, I got a question for Commissioner Shaver. Do you store all those records next to your garage, your Dodge garage?
Beside my Corvette.
Sorry, Devil made me say that.
It's locked, right?
Yeah, it's locked. And don't let my children in there.
Van, do you want me to go next to Adam?
Yes.
I'm done.
You're
I'm
done.
Mr. Jenkins, we're good.
Okay, look at this. Tracy and Aaron, you're up.
Hang on, let me say this. My part is annexation update. I have nothing. We got a text a minute ago from the attorney. He is somewhere between here and the UT Law School, and I think what time did he text us? He left about 10 till, something like that. So he ought to be here very shortly, I'm sure, depending on traffic. So just whenever he gets here, he's on the clock. So we'll jump in and take whatever information he wants to share with us.
Okay, and Adam's done. Tracy and,
Items going on the agenda,
what's that?
are any of these on the agenda?
No, he just took it off.
No, Mr. Jenkins answered all my questions, we're good.
Okay.
Nothing for the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tracy and Aaron, take us through the budget.
It's Aaron, Henry, Aaron.
Aaron.
Tracy don't answer no more.
Okay,
Okay, some things that were discussed in budget were, there's 2 resolutions that will be included as part of the next meeting. One is to terminate the swap with one of our debt profiles, and one is to, move it in a different direction without the swap. And then the next thing is Director of Schools, came and presented 3 additional projects for preliminary design. There will likely be additional funds needed at a later date. Sorry, I tried.
You're fine, you're fine. Take your time, we're waiting on Larry to get here.
The final resolution is the UBT building that we've already bought, but we gotta do this to make it official.
There was, on the agenda, there was to, request funding for door entry key cards at the jail.
Yep.
And it would be good if that would come from 15M instead of the ARPA funds, capital projects.
let me stop you right there, Aaron. In our budget committee meeting, I spoke to a few of y'all after the meeting. I made the statement, why would we use borrowed money and start paying interest on it? Tracy cleared me up after the meeting, that 400,000, the 15 million had 400,000 left, it's all been drawn down, so we're making payments on it already. So rather than coming out of ARPA, we're gonna take it out of the 400,000 that's left over since we're already making the payments, and that's saving some ARPA money.
Okay.
That was slightly different than what we had agreed to and recommended in the meeting.
It's like $32,000.
Yeah.
There was a recommendation to approve the acceptance of the ARPA grant for the health department, just to follow our grant process.
The thing about that is Teresa Harrell, we sat down with Teresa Thursday or Friday of last week. And with the flood that happened during the freeze, Loudon County Health Department's at the top of the list now, so it's got, we're moving it quick. We're gonna tie in the remodel, with the insurance fix, so, right now they're, have a skeleton crew going at Rome State Community College in Lenore City, so we did get the grant, they're top of the list, so it's there waiting on us.
There will also be a consideration for recommendation to spend a portion of Commissioner Cohen's $500,000 out of the ARPA funds on the Tellico Village Fire Department. And then there will be a resolution in regards to the per diem increase to mirror what the state rate is. And then there were amendments.
Is the state rate the same as that federal rate you get online?
I don't know if state and federal are the same.
While you're looking, there's two gentlemen in the back of the room. One is the Deputy Chief, Bob Lettington. Second gentleman is the Assistant Chief, Bill Ballinger. They're gonna use that funds to replace Boat 128 with a newer, updated one. Couple things taught us a lesson along the way. One was the Tenasseee Clubhouse, and number two was the boat that burned out in the middle of the lake. And of course, getting people on the boat for medical emergencies to get them back to the ramp to get the EMS was an issue. So I think this is an opportunity to help them out, and I'm more than happy to do it.
And then the next thing is the amendments. We have amendments in 101, 115, 127, 131, and 176. We will also have an amendment in 171 to move the key cards into capital projects rather than ARPA funds.
Key cards.
There's one recommendation from capital projects, which is the switches here at the annex. For $15,800, some type of Wi-Fi upgrade.
You had it set.
Steve Harrelson's Shelby.
The Shelby.
For BB&T.
Oh, the Shelby from ARPA for $65,000. I believe that's all.
Mr. Chairman, let me talk about the FSA office, or get that moving and then bring it back.
Tell us when you find out.
Tell us.
We don't. I think some mention needs to be made of the fact that we did make a salary adjustment tonight.
We
Budget
made,
committee recommended a salary adjustment.
But we didn't add any new money.
No, we didn't do that, not this budget cycle.
we'll meet that in June 30th.
No, you'll meet that next month.
Yeah.
You'll meet that next
We
month.
kick that can on
Okay.
down the road.
Aaron, is that it?
I believe that's it.
All of those will be on February 6th commission meeting for a vote. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
believe it or not, that's the attorney coming and sitting back there in the back. He's not a homeless guy or nothing. He's the real deal back there. He rode all the way in with the windows down, looked like, but
Can I get a bathroom break real quick before we go down that road?
Okay, I'll take,
5-minute break.
we'll get a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
What's that? What about that? Salary adjustment, my campus. Let me get up.
How are you, Gary? How's Philadelphia?
Your vaccine mandate resolution is in all places supposed to be sent.
Yes, we had. Class, after last meeting. Plus, I understand we're getting back pay.
I love it. That's the decision we made.
The ones that got kicked out, they're gonna get back pay.
First grade, I'll have another one down
No,
there.
I ain't read that.
First grade.
How you doing?
Creek. Hey, Creek. Yeah, I'm squared away. We have water lines all the time, as you know. The contractor put that in years ago, and when they didn't put no gravel down or anything, they laid it on top of rock, big rock. And so when the tractor shifts just a little bit, that water line naturally is going to vibrate constantly with water. It will vibrate. And eventually, it gets set on rock. They just did it wrong. That,
We get that on pass a lot of
I
times.
need to redo that. It'd be nice to redo it before. Right?
Yeah, it would be nice.
Go get it. See what he can talk to somebody about that. I spent a lot of nights on that. I made a lot of money on that road. Yeah, I watched the sunrise several times on that road.
You'd think they'd make some kind of wrap you could put it out.
So Chase, did you wake up, Chase?
So like I said, it happens, just anytime water's moving in that line, it's gonna vibrate, and it's just about time for all.
Finally.
We've had a few of those for tasks. One blew out, washed out a bridge there on Old Slag Road.
Oh, I remember that. We had our gas line there and everything.
I also use, I don't mean, I also use my laptop. I don't need it.
You couldn't have taken roll call and stuff.
Yeah. I think it ties in on this. And like, how do
I'm gonna find out.
Yeah.
I'll get with Sonia and see.
Hey, Chase.
I know those companies that,
Yeah.
No, not yet.
had that
We still
software.
haven't got
That takes place of all those.
Yeah, but we have.
We better have a name Thursday. Well, see, we're not ready to amend it yet. They're bringing us the name that they recommend, and then we can look at it.
It'll be, those three people get it, they'll score one or whatever, and the one independently, they can't meet. We had to do that on this building, which I don't like, now I'm gonna just do RFP.
All I gotta do is that.
We've been there now, we haven't done really anything.
We got to get that lawyer in place. We need to have that lawyer sit with us in February.
I told her, I said, I wanna see everybody's submission, everybody's. I said, I'm not gonna vote on any recommendations that y'all bring.
Maybe we get all that paperwork Thursday, call a special call meeting.
I asked her, I said, we're gonna get, no, we won't get it Thursday, we still have to meet again and do something. She regretted it, and she's back to being in a position. Do something.
We got that.
Did he let you in?
We need to be CC on
Well, I'm gonna call it back to order and we're gonna go.
Not yet, we're missing a few. You learn, quick learner.
There's some wording that says.
Okay. Ben, we're missing you.
I thought I heard more in back.
Okay.
Carry on best we can.
All right, I'm gonna call the workshop back to order. Ben Shaver?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to immediately turn it over to Mr. Kyle Baisley. I couldn't tell you the law firm he's with, he can tell you that. All I asked him to do for a couple of things tonight, most of y'all hadn't met him, you don't know him. He's had some communication contacts with the city. He's here just to update us, to take your questions, concerns, anything you want to talk to Mr. Kyle Baisley about. There he is.
All right. Apologize for my tardiness. I teach a law school class at UT, and we made it 4 o'clock till 5:40. I learned. I thought it was till 5:30, but it was 5:40. So I made it here as quickly as I could. So I apologize.
No problem.
As you all may be aware, most likely are aware, we've looked into the Lenore City's annexation of the 2 properties that have been discussed. You've got the Bell West, which was annexed and approved by Lenore City for high-density development. There's been, a decent amount of development activity that's taken place on that property since its annexation in 2020. And then you've got the W&W properties, which was just recently annexed. Reviewed all the materials related to that. It's my opinion that those were both annexed, illegally, outside of applicable Tennessee law. One wasn't even properly applied for. The W&W properties annexation application wasn't even applied for in the name of the property owner. Both the properties at the time of annexation were outside of the UGB that was approved in 2000. Neither of the properties could get around that by saying that they were adjoining the city property. That there is a way for a property owner outside of the UGB. If they apply for annexation, they own the adjoining property that's in the city. They can't have it annexed outside of the UGB. That's not the case here. It also is in violation of the interlocal agreement. So you've got a number of issues here related to the illegal annexation of those properties. I believe that there's interest from a number of the Loudon County residents that are surrounding those 2 properties, some of which have been in touch with me directly on this issue. Concerns that it may continue to be a problem in that area. They're concerned about those 2 particular properties because of the high density development that will likely result on the W&W properties, and it's already resulted from the annexation of the Bell West Point property.
Can you tell me when Bell West was done?
Bell West was done in 2020. And, it's, I understand there's also a concern from at least one of the commissioners of this, precedent being established if the Loudon County doesn't act on this. I don't know that it sets a legally enforceable precedent down the road, but it's more of the idea that Loudon County wouldn't, challenge these illegal annexations in violation of Tennessee law and the interlocal agreement. So At this juncture, I've been in touch with Walter Johnson, attorney for Lenore City. He has provided some limited information. He did tell me, I think his exact words were it was the crust of the biscuit. But I've reviewed what he sent. It doesn't change my analysis of those annexations, that they were done illegally. In conversations with him, some of you may have seen the letter that I drafted to Lenore City. His response to that was, can we have a joint meeting? I think that was his idea, is to have a joint meeting of Lenore City and Loudon. He's characterizing it more as a political issue, and I disagreed with him. I said, well, there are political components attached to it, but if they're not going to de-annex those properties, it's very much a legal judicial issue. Obviously, the political issue, it could become political if they would agree to de-annex those. I don't know if that's in their deck of cards or not. So the decision becomes, what does Loudon County want to do about it? Pursue litigation to have a declaratory relief sought from the court that those were void and illegal annexations. That could lead to an agreement. That could lead to lengthy litigation. It just depends on how they respond to that. So I guess I can open it up for questions, comments, discussion.
Going forward, I think the entire commission needs to be copied on any email correspondence with you in Lenore City.
Okay. Is there a way to get?
I'll send you everybody.
Okay, I'll do that.
In 2005, there was a fella who owned, his name was William Farnham. He owned the property right now where the Cook Brother development is, out beside the substation. There was half of the property was inside the UGB and had been annexed by the city. The other half was outside the UGB and had not been annexed. He came to us right here and said, I'd really like to have both my parcels inside the UGB and annexed, and we voted on it and approved it. That's how the interlocal agreement was supposed to work. That worked for him because he was a single owner. In this case, there are no single owners that could have made that particular part happen. So that's one of the biggest differences between then and now.
To our knowledge, is there any other instances this will come into play? I mean, since Bell West was done like this in 2020, is there any other properties out there?
I have taken the map and taken the list. I went back and found the original maps that we were taking to court in 2003, 2005 ultimately. And I went back and got the full list of the original 177 parcels, and then after it was honed down to 40 parcels. I have looked at this. I've gone through on the property data website, the state website that has all the stuff. Thus far, I haven't found another one. Harper Village, some of y'all be familiar with, it falls under the same sort of thing. Part of it was in, part was out, but it was the same owner. So that's the closest I've come so far.
Harper Village are those newer condos right there?
Right there behind the school.
Okay.
Yeah. So the bigger question, and I actually was having a conversation with our lawyer from 2005, not long ago, and then we've had this conversation with different people. Right now, all we've done is said to the city, you've done something wrong. There's no punitive damage facing the city right now. Ultimately, the logical way you go is you file a lawsuit, then you negotiate. We have nothing to negotiate with right now. They care less what we think or say. They're not even going to come to the table till there's a reason to have to. So the question comes to this body now, what do? We just walk away and let it stand? Do we move forward and file whatever legal action we have to file, lawsuits or whatever you want to call it? I'm hypothetical. Y'all know what I think. Mine and Joe's district's taking the brunt of this. That's 20% of the voters in Lenore City live in our district. 90% of their urban growth boundary is in the 5th district. Adam's got a little bit up his way, but most all of it's in ours. So we're the most affected by all of this. We have a few of the residents, not all of them came out tonight. In fact, I told everybody they didn't have to, but the residents out here are the ones that are being the most affected by it. And it's got to stop somewhere.
Well, it scares me in my district for the precedence this sense. You know, they could continue right across Bill's Chapel all the way down
Absolutely.
North Shore and anywhere they wanted to if this hadn't stopped.
What was the point of the urban growth boundary if you're not gonna follow it?
I think you'll hear,
That's exactly what I just mentioned to Commissioner Shaver, on the break is, you know, if you got UGB and you've got everything surrounding, coordinating committee and how that's legally expanded and the exceptions to that, which are very limited, you know, it's gotta be same owner, owns property in the city that adjoins. I mean, there's not a whole lot of gray area here. It's pretty black and white.
So if there were litigation, then we would be suing Lenore City to de-annex that property? We could
Correct.
make them de-annex that property?
Correct. We'd be seeking declaratory relief from the court to render the prior annexations void and de-annex that property. And of course, you've got private property owners. You've got Bell West Point LLC, you've got W&W Properties LLC. Dan Smith is involved in that somehow, some way. They have vested interest.
Oh, yeah.
But as I've discussed with Commissioner Shaver, Commissioner Waller, believe that, you know, whatever complaints they have would be back against Lenore City for relying on an annexation that was illegal to begin with. And within their own minutes, they actually make reference to the properties being within the UGB, and they're absolutely clearly not within the UGB, nor do the exceptions apply. So, to the extent they misled them to believe that, they've now relied on that, and in the case of Bell West, spent a material amount of money making developments that you otherwise wouldn't make unless you're gonna be, developing high-density housing. I don't believe that's Loudon County's problem.
So is the Bell West able to be researched right now since the board never voted on that one? The only one that was ever voted on was the property of Dan Smith.
I think, I don't see why it needs another vote. I mean, it's all illegal, whether it's voted on or not.
But the only one we were approaching and pursuing was the Dan Smith one at that time.
That's, I guess, 6 1 half dozen other. At this point, I guess the bigger question, and when Buddy and I met with Kyle, the first thing he said about lawsuit, I said, can't file a lawsuit. Told him the night we voted on it, we weren't going the next day to file a lawsuit. County commission would be informed before any lawsuit was filed. He knew none of this, so he said, okay, here's what we need to do. This is exactly what Rexdale did in 2003. You file a lawsuit, then you have negotiating power. Right now, we have no negotiating power. They don't care. This isn't going anywhere unless we file a lawsuit. So
I think it's also relevant that I think there's an understanding that there's some connection between Bell West Point and this Dan Smith property. And if that property, if the Bell West Point property is allowed to stand, does that then give the annexation of this one that adjoins that property better standing to say, well, that was already annexed, so now we can adjoin that if it becomes the same owner?
well, we heard Mr. Smith say the very point right here that night. What if Fuller buys my property? Then does that make it okay? Well, at that time, as far as we knew, Bell West was legit. Now we know it's not.
So if Bell West, if they de-annex that, so where would they be compared to being in the county, being in the city as far as density? Do we know? I mean, are they gonna have to scale back what they were doing?
Well, they would now
And
be.
or would it revert back to 2020, to what the county had in place then? Or is it what the county has in place now?
It's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that there would be an argument to be made that it would be the 2020, but I believe the de-annexation, I believe it would be whatever further development would be applicable, the current
Makes sense.
restriction on high-density development. I think that would arguably apply. That's a great question, and I don't know the answer off the top of my head to that.
It's your legal opinion that both were illegally annexed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What would stop, this is just thinking outside the box, what would stop a private citizen that, say, has bought property here years ago, knowing that it was outside the UGB and they felt protected? What would stop a private citizen from turning around and suing Loudon County or Lenore City if this stood?
I think they may have stand-in to pursue Loudon County, possibly for not acting on it and not protecting their interests as a Loudon County resident. I don't know that they would have stand-in to actually challenge it with Lenore City.
Okay.
That becomes the real.
That was my point with Loudon County, I was just wanting to.
Yeah, I don't even think, based on my research, I'm not even sure they would have the quote warranto process to challenge it with Lenore City. You know, not being within the city themselves. I think it creates a stand-in challenge for.
But they could have litigation against Loudon County for not acting
Perhaps.
on the illegal annexation.
Perhaps.
Okay.
So I think there is, to your point, I think there is some exposure for Loudon County doing nothing, if those residents, were inclined to pursue that sort of action.
During the public chapter 1101 comp time, that started about 99, and Loudon County didn't actually officially adopt, all the cities in the county didn't adopt till mid-2001. It was, there were nearly fist fights down there, people that did not ever want to be in anybody's UGB, not just Lenore City. Everybody was scared to death of annexation. Prior to UGB, everybody lived in fear of annexation all the time. It was just, there was lawsuits. We wound up even suing after the UGB, but it was a never anything. And that was the state's ideal to solve all this legal problem, was to create the UGB. I'm going all the way back before we start at the very front end. Everybody had to come to terms and agree within the urban growth boundary for the next 20 years or the length of 1101, this is where you can annex and this is all. The Bell West property, I can tell you the owners of the day, they were so violently opposed to being included in the UGB, and they weren't. That's why that big hunk was not included in it. It was the Ross family, the Harris family, is who it was. I hope y'all knew some of them. Nobody wanted to be included in the UGB. Unfortunately, I think the county gave away too much when we did it. I wasn't here then. I wasn't on by the time. It was all done by the time I came on the first time, but I was here very much watching. And like I said, there was standing room only at every coordinated committee meeting. It was the awfulest thing, but it got fought through and it got done. Now, just to ignore it at this point and say, never mind, we're just gonna do what we want to, prior to it ever being adopted, it just cannot stand. Not in my district. We can't, our folks don't want it. I'm telling you, they don't want any part of it. They don't want what comes next door to the city.
How did we miss this? How did we miss this?
Who's supposed to watch it?
I mean, that's my question. Who is supposed to watch it?
I missed it. I just now the W&W, I found it. And in the course of W&W, that's how we found the Bell West one. But in 2020, November of 2020, I don't know what I had going on. I don't have a clue.
But also, how impossible is it to get a planning agenda?
COVID.
Well, it could have been COVID,
But how impossible is it to get an agenda from the city on
you
planning? That's
can't
what I'm
get a
asking.
planning agenda from the city. I've been promised to be put on the agendas. What has made it easier now to see is since COVID, we do now have some meetings are recorded. That helps a lot. They post their minutes online, so I go watch those sort of things. But there is no big brother watching this sort of stuff to make sure everybody's doing right. You depend on local governments to do what's right. I should have caught it in 2020. I should have seen the whole process coming. I just didn't. I can't tell you why.
So when they did the county they never came to the county for building or anything. Everything went through Lenore City.
100%. We never saw anything of any kind from anybody.
A review of the records related to the Bell West, they actually took the position, and it says, let's see, in their minutes from the approval, it just misrepresents it. It says that,
It says every time it's in the UGB.
yeah, request for annexation of the property, 5744 Highway 321 to be zoned R3 high density. This property is just over 124 acres located off Highway 321, just up from Highway 70, and is adjacent to the city limits. It's not adjacent to the city limits. And it goes further to say, in the prior, one place it actually says that it's within the UGB. And
It does.
Yeah, it's in the resolution. It says, whereas located within the city of Lenore City's urban growth boundaries,
Right.
as adopted by Loudon County Growth Plan approved by the state of Tennessee in June 2000. And it's just not, I mean, it's clear as day, it's not within the UGB, it's not adjacent.
And did the city just miss that? Did somehow they not realize it wasn't in their UGB? I don't know the answer to that. I could not possibly answer that question. Now, W&W, I'm pretty sure, because the very first resolution said it was in the UGB. The next two resolutions took that language out. It doesn't say it was in the UGB. So somewhere between the first and the second, third, they realized W&W was not in the UGB. So they changed the resolution.
What about the lawsuit back in 2006 involving LCUB on the Ross family where Russ Newman had signed off on the annexation?
That's all that. I'm still going through trying to figure out how that even applies. When I spoke with Walter Johnson, attorney for Lenoir City, he brought that up and mentioned that he thought that there was some level of agreement by the county to allow annexation of that property, but
I can tell you every phase of that. The Ross family had the property back there. The older Rosses had passed away. So the younger family was wanting to, okay, can we do something about selling this? Can we have it developed? They couldn't do anything with it because they had no road frontage on 321. You have to understand, they owned it prior to 321 being built. So they had no road frontage to get to 321. Hiawassee Land Company owned all the roads in front of them. I've done read everything in that. So what Russ Newman said, the only way they can ever use that property for anything other than what they're doing, their single family home on it, they will have to have a 50-foot easement to Highway 321 from their property. That's where they went and got the easement from Bowater at that time, now Hiawassee Land Company, gave them a 50-foot wide by nearly 900-foot easement from 321 back to their property. That's all that happened in 2006. Actually, 2007 is when it passed. There is language in that about annexation that says the Rosses do not have to be annexed. They're going to get gas line, water line, sewer line. They wanted, LCUB wanted to put a water tank on their property, and they were going to just condemn it and take it away from them. So ultimately, they discussed and came up with a deal. They got gas line, water lines, access to the gas lines and water lines put into their property by LCB. LCB did a lot of good things for them, but it's specifically in the resolution, it says they get all this, yet they do not have to be annexed into Lenoir City.
what I would say, even if it gone on to say they did have to be annexed, the annexation would still have to be done legally.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
even if it had said that, it doesn't have any impact on the legality of the way they annex that property.
Okay, on these two pieces of property, are they just dirt or are they done some work on it?
They've done a bunch of work on
Bill
that.
West.
Millions of
Bill
dollars.
Bill West is, I would say it's very, very much developed, in reliance on the illegal annexation that was done,
And what they did was totally illegal.
based on my review, yes, sir.
So here's the question before us tonight. And I'm not gonna force a hand. When we voted on this back in, whenever we voted on this, when was the last time we was here? December? December. I think we all kinda knew there wasn't gonna be any resolution with Lenoir City voluntarily. It's just not gonna happen. So my motion that night was that we take action up to and including legal action, something to that effect. It's in the minutes. I've gone back and watched the video several times. Kyle's done all he can do now. He's communicated, he's written letters, he's talked to them. He can't do anymore. We can't compel them to even talk to us at this point. Obviously, they're not going to give us any public record. Let's put it that way. So what we have to decide now as a body, what do we do going forward? Do we cut him loose now to go file a lawsuit and bring him to the table? What do you do?
I think they're willing to come to the table. From what
They said they're willing to talk.
spoke us.
So if they're willing to talk, then we need
all meet
to.
and talk?
Right there's the man to talk to.
No, they wanna meet whole board to board.
No.
We're not lawyers, so
What is there to, what's to be
Let
gained?
them talking to
What's
us
to be
as well.
gained by us talking to them? You've illegally annexed two parcels of property, de-annex it. Do you think that's gonna solve it?
You're hearing both sides that way. Everybody hears both
William,
sides.
there's just one side. It was illegally annexed.
Here's the issue.
He's reached out to their lawyer too, correct? I mean, you've done as much as you can.
He can't do anything else.
And Mr. Johnson's he's been pleasant to deal with. He is characterizing it as a political issue, and I do disagree with that. I think it's a legal issue, but there are obviously political components in play, especially as it relates to future you know, the expansion of the UGB, those are all political issues. An agreement for them to de-annex or you all to allow, you know, one or both to remain annexed, that could be a political issue, but it's a legal issue, it's a strict legal issue that it was done illegally. Now what's done with that could be judicial or legislative. It could go either way.
We don't even have the authority to allow them to do it. We can't say, okay, you did it, messed up, go ahead and do it. We can't even let them do it. They have violated state
Yeah,
law.
state law says.
Yeah, state law says how you do it, and they didn't do it. The way they would actually have to do it, outside of the one instance where if somebody owns two parcels, which doesn't apply, you have to reconvene the coordinating committee, you go back through the process, each side hears the different positions and opinions, then you make votes on it, you either come to terms, the coordinating committee ultimately makes a decision. That could take longer than a lawsuit, but that's the only legal way you do what they've done.
Yeah, that is worth noting that no matter what agreement might be reached amongst the bodies, it doesn't undo the illegality of those annexations. So I don't know what exposure either side has in that arrangement.
Would you be willing to hear from Ms. Terry for just a second? Would that be all right with you?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Patty Terry. I am the chairperson of the GIS board for Loudon County. And I was helping do the mapping when the UGB was created. And one of the main issues and driving points of the UGB was to allow growth in areas where they had infrastructure that would support the growth. And I think that's something that hasn't really been discussed in this issue, is what is the impact of the UGB, and if we don't follow the UGB, what impact does it have on all of our infrastructure, our school systems, our gas, water, sewer, our utilities? And so I think that that's something that needs to be in consideration as also.
Thank you. Well, I think the bottom line of all of this is, if you do nothing, they can keep going and you're finished in court. You've already so much allowed it. Am I right or wrong?
I'm not sure, basically, I haven't been able to find anything that says this can be waived. But in practice, if you sit by and allow them to continue, it absolutely could continue, because if there's gonna really be no one withstanding to challenge it.
Yeah, once you've let it go, you
You
set
go all
a
the way down,
precedent.
321 to the third, all the way down.
If we allowed it, and say, they came and built
Then
something
keep going.
next to my property that had a negative or any kind of impact on it, I'm gonna come back and sue the county because they didn't stop it. They allowed it
Exactly.
to happen, or sue the city.
That's
I
true.
said, it's not a, and I don't think there's any punitive meanings in all this, but I think we need to reestablish, and everybody understands what the UGB is, and they need to de-annex these two pieces of property. I don't think.
They wouldn't de-annex them, the judge would rule them de-annexed, right?
Unless they voluntarily do it.
Yeah, well, if they could voluntarily de-annex,
Damages or anything like that.
the judge could issue an order declaring them void, so it could go either way.
We can't take a vote tonight, we're just at a workshop. As far as I'm concerned, our previous vote gave the authority to go up to and including. It's not a mountain I'm gonna die on. If everybody thinks we need to have a second vote to give Mr. Baisley the unleash him and let him go to whatever the next level is, I don't have a fight with that. I would like to be able to tell him tonight, just go get him tomorrow, do what we gotta do. We have to get this, the longer we let it track, the longer it goes on. I'm taking input from what everybody here thinks.
Well, what we voted on was to, explore all avenues up to.
Seek any and all legal action to stop and undo the annexation.
Seek any and all.
Legal action to stop and undo the annexation. That's what, right here, the
That's
message.
it's cut and dry.
So do we say Kyle's good to go?
But my
the
thoughts
way I read
are, if they wanna come to the table and have a discussion with their attorney speaking, and we're all there, and we hear every angle, every side, and
But this is
And
it's court of law, not court
We're
of
not
public
a jury.
opinion.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
We're a lawyer.
It's either against the law or not.
Well, just like our attorney said here, we don't have the authority to undo anything or to ignore anything.
Yeah, we
Well,
paid
I
this
mean, I
gentleman
guess-
to give his legal opinion, that's what he's done.
I get, we don't have the authority to say, oh, that's okay. So are you saying the only resolution to this process is to go to court? And pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this
I
out?
hope he's not that high.
I believe Lenore City can de-annex it on their own accord.
Can we draft them a letter that says we're going to take legal action, give them the opportunity to de-annex and say, this is what's gonna happen if you don't, we know what's gonna happen.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
I would just explore any avenue other than a lawsuit that we could do to
Absolutely.
get them to negotiate. And I know what the law says, but if there's something that could come to the table to be worked out other than that,
So
I
can
think.
Kyle send them a letter saying de-annex, we're gonna file suit March 15th? Are we comfortable with that?
Well, I mean, in
Meet
my
with
opinion,
them.
we don't vote on anything at
A workshop.
We don't have to vote on anything.
So,
Well,
I mean, I don't know why we wanna change the rules today. I think.
There's no vote being taken.
Well, but we're talking about making votes. and
Well, we've
making
already
decisions.
authorized him to take any and all
He's
legal
already been
action.
authorized.
Any and all legal
I
action.
mean, I missed that meeting,
Yeah.
but.
You was on vacation, Wayne, I remember now.
So,
We've already
I
voted.
guess that's my question.
We've already voted for him to go ahead and take the next step.
I think, to your point, my job is to try to get the most time and cost-effective resolution as possible. I don't think either Loudon County or Lenore City wants to waste any resources, time, and energy on this that don't have to be wasted. I think at some point, I believe it was, maybe perhaps it was in the News Herald, that legal, up to filing a lawsuit was approved, but from what Commissioner Waller said, it sounds like any legal action's already been approved, so perhaps Lenore City's knowledge of that might change the way that they are viewing this. And it might, garner a little bit more, cooperation in the discussions. So I'm happy, and as I said, Walter Johnson's he's been responsive. He pulled together this information, much more quickly than other, Lenore City representatives who had been requested by Commissioner Shaver and, Tim and Tammy Purcell weeks ago. He got it together pretty quickly. I think he's genuine in at least discussing the matter. Whether or not as a governing body they will take that next step, that's not his call, but he can certainly do what I'm doing and make recommendations. So,
Be up to the city council to make a decision, de-annex.
correct. He can't do that for them.
So you're for drafting a letter, but you're not for us going and meeting with them?
I think we start with a letter and a conversation between Walter and myself to see, there's really two options it seems. They're either gonna agree to de-annex it and start that process, and if so, my understanding is, why would we then file a lawsuit if they can make that clear and say, this is what we're gonna do? If they don't, and they say, they either don't respond to that, or their response is, we want a joint meeting, which is what he's already expressed, then it's the commission's decision, do you wanna have that joint meeting before taking the next step, or should we go ahead and proceed
I
with?
personally think that if they're wanting to have a joint meeting, they might be some discussion that they might wanna have with us.
If you can give me one thing that.
I don't know what they would possibly wanna say. You don't have a clue.
Either they're
But
gonna
if they're wanting to
de-annex
come to you and talk,
Here's
you
my
should hear them out
proposal.
and listen.
We ask him to send that letter asking them to de-annex, and if they don't respond saying they're going to by February 6th, we take a vote for him to do what he needs to do again.
February 6th is our next
Did I hear
meeting.
you say that the state regulates this, the state?
Oh, no. No, the state won't do anything. It's a state law.
It's state law.
So, I mean, why is the state not addressing?
Well,
this?
there's a million state laws the state won't address. They pass these silly little things like this and then just leave it to the locals. If you can find a Department of Public Chapter 1101 to call, have at it, but there is nobody in the state of Tennessee that's gonna give a rat's tail what we're doing. They pass the law, it's up to the locals to enforce it, like so many other laws they pass.
Beyond the letter and the meeting, the joint meeting, the December, when it was voted on, it was also explicitly that this was up to a lawsuit, not a lawsuit.
Here it says any and all legal action.
But it was also explicitly in that vote.
Up to.
Again, my solution is he sends a letter asking them
I'm
to
fine.
pledge to
Yeah.
de-annex,
I'm
and we
just
vote
saying,
on February
that was the vote
6th.
in December. I have no issue with
That's
that
fine.
whatsoever.
My letter, it's worth noting that my letter, clearly in my email response, I believe Commissioner Shaver posted it on his website. My email response, I put Mr. Johnson on notice that, you know, they should communicate with those landowners that they shouldn't be doing any further development based on the annexations that we're challenging. I don't believe that's our job to do that. You know, Loudon County didn't create that issue, didn't create that situation, and it's clearly stated now they're interested in not allowing it to continue. So I did put them on notice. You know, one of the things we discussed was, would it be wise to pursue a temporary restraining order if litigation is required to halt any and all further, you know, development of that property? But ultimately, that's really the private property owner's issue to take up with Lenore City.
What happens to Bill West, you know, they annexed it in 2020, we didn't know it, we didn't see it, these people have made all this investment, what do you do? So if it's de-annexed, what do you do?
They sue the city.
I'm sorry?
Bell West sues the city.
Bell West sues the city, their sister property with all these, I hadn't been out there, I don't know what they've got. Houses, pads.
It looks like D.R. Horton Developments, what it looks
But
like.
it's just roads and infrastructure, there's no homes or anything.
Not a
done.
house.
There's not a single house there. It's
Roads,
just a road.
curbs, sewer, water, the standard stuff.
So what do you do with it?
Comes back to the county
I have
or?
no idea. If I mean, I can't find any precedent for this anywhere. I don't see this ever
I
happen.
mean, it just remains, owned by Bell West Point, and it's got a lot of infrastructure on it that will probably, you know, hopefully they can find a use for it.
Well, they'll have to come in compliance with county regulations to put homes on it, essentially.
Correct.
Now, let's make a point of this too. It's no longer Bell West Point LLC. It has now changed to Home Builders.
It's actually still titled the name of Bell West Point, but if you look at the Secretary of State, it's
That's
got
right. They've changed.
registered agent, principal office is this, home development.
Home Development LLC or
Development
something
LLC.
like that. So I don't know what that means. Bell West LLC, Bell West Point LLC is who got all the big tax breaks. They got the pilot, then they got the tax, whatever the other one was, where they were gonna buy all the property back. So they ultimately turned in their applications, no, we don't want your tax increments, and then they changed the name of who's managing. So I don't know what's going on out there. I don't have any idea what their plans are. As far as what the development was gonna be and what it is, it's probably about 1/3 of what the original plan was, because when you went through Rosemary the other day, immediately on your right, there was supposed to be 275 low to moderate income apartments on the right. You went down the asphalt, there's supposed to be another asphalt road go up toward the old house to have another 100 and something homes up there. So all they've done is just the one run right now. So it could get worse if they choose to go out and do any more.
So are we opposed to him sending a letter asking them to de-annex and then voting again on February 6th?
I'm good with it.
I mean, I'd like to see the minutes from your meeting.
Right here,
I wasn't
you got them in front of you.
Yeah.
You got it.
That's what I've been quoting the whole time.
Yeah, that's what he's reading.
Yeah.
And I went back, I'll be honest, I went back and watched it several times.
I have two.
I have to.
So are we good with sending a letter and then taking another vote on the 6th?
I have one.
It works for me. I don't think a whole lot's gonna change in 2 weeks' time. I think that's about how long it is till the 6th meeting. And,
So in the next 2 weeks, if Lenore City's asked you to come and meet with them.
I have no
you
desire
won't
to
do
meet
it.
with Little City. There's nothing to talk about.
This is a court issue, not
Well, what
a
is
legal
there to
issue.
worry about? You know you're gonna win the lawsuit, then what are you worried about meeting with them?
What's gained, William?
It's either legal
What's
or
gained?
not.
Everybody's able to hear the side
It's a
of
legal
Lenore
matter, not a
City.
court of public opinion.
They are aware of the size. They know the size. They know.
They hear
liability
what you
they
have to say.
No,
We've
no.
not heard everything.
They've heard what he has to say. No matter what I say, I'm just one of 10. They've heard what he says. That's why we hired him to do that. I don't mind having a joint meeting, because we all know the mayor forever has wanted to expand his UGB. Told me that himself. Oh, we'll talk about cut a little here, add a little there. I have no issue with that whatsoever. It's got nothing to do with this. We can handle that 6 months from now, the summer, the winter, whatever. This is the paramount issue, and I think that was even what you said in that letter to Walter. Talk about all you want to, but what matters are the 2 illegal annexations. If anybody can show me, other than Little City saying, we messed up, we're gonna de-annex, they won't do it, because they know they've got a liability issue in front of them.
If they de-annex, would it come back to the county?
Yes.
It would come back to the
It
county.
would be county jurisdiction again.
So basically, they can continue developing it, it'd just be under our rules, not Lenore City.
Exactly, it'd be 2 homes per acre, period.
2 homes per acre,
There you
Would it,
go.
or would it revert back to 2020?
2.5 homes per acre,
Which is what it is.
2020.
If the Bell West property had a PUD on it,
2.5.
It didn't have.
well, it was 2 per acre.
2 per acre.
2020,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So it's still 2 per acre,
It was 2 per acre in 2020.
Unless it had a PUD attached.
unless it had a PUD and it didn't have a PUD.
So Kyle's gonna send a letter asking them to,
Here it is, I mean, here's your letter. This is what the commission has discussed. Here's your letter saying you're on notice. If nothing happens between now and February 6th, legal action is gonna be taken. Does that sound right? Only more than
Now, is
likely.
another vote gonna be held on the 6th to officially approve the final litigation?
That's what I'm hearing everybody say they wanna do. Like I said, I'm not gonna die on that mountain. I think we could tell him tonight to do it, but I'm gonna go with whatever the body wants to do.
Yeah, I think that at some point in that meeting, I heard up to. Now, I've listened to the meeting, I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
But I know that I heard up to that night. So I say we let him send a letter, then February 6th, take
We'll
the
have a
next
vote.
step.
It was up, according to my hearing, it was up to and including. That's what.
Bill, I'm not gonna
Is
die
that
on the
not what's
mountain.
in the minutes?
It got all twisted.
I thought Rosemary even asked, this is not a lawsuit, this is only.
Exactly.
And that was me, I wanted
We all
up to a
clarified,
lawsuit.
we did not want.
that's fine, it's
Well,
what
I
we're
agree.
3 weeks out, do you all, does this commission have interest in the meeting?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Rosemary and William, you go
We'll have
meet
to
with
vote
city
on that now.
council
Vote on that now.
and report back to us.
Well, we
I'm
can,
not
but I
going
think
to.
they,
I'll see if I can set up and who wants to attend can attend. If we can avoid litigation, let's.
Absolutely.
Can we with a meeting? I
But
don't know. I'm not.
Why don't we just have a meeting,
back
why don't
to-
you and Tony and their lawyer and our lawyer have a meeting?
Back to other than Lenore City saying we're de-annexing, what's a meeting?
exactly.
Because it's
If we end up
not,
in a lawsuit,
it's against
lawyers
the
always
state
That's
law.
no
We have
We're
lots of
gonna
lawsuits.
see county funding.
We have 3.
If we can avoid it.
Well, I'm
Is it
gonna
avoidable? I
help.
don't know.
I'm gonna help one little spot right there. If funding gets to be an issue, I haven't really had this conversation with Joe. I know what Joe's position on this is. If funding is a problem for anybody, I haven't really heard that because over the course of the next 4 to 8 years, everybody sitting here is gonna eventually be looking at a lawsuit in their district. Bill Satterfield, we've got one with Cook Brothers, we've got one with Mark Matlock in his district, we've got one with, what's our third one? Anyhow, everybody's gonna get one sooner or later, and I'll be the first to back anybody in their district that says we have to do something. But if it gets to be a problem, I don't have a bit of issue whatsoever as using some of the ARPA funding that I have, or that Joe has, if he wants to participate, in taking care of holding the county harmless on their legal fees. Our ARPA money was to be used in our districts to betterment of our district. There's nothing I could do, we could do in the 5th district that would be more important and more impactful and more beneficial to everybody in the 5th district than to see that this lawsuit gets dealt with.
I'm not even talking about the fund, I'm just saying if we can avoid it, let's avoid it.
I'm not-
Can we? I don't know.
We know what it takes to avoid it, right?
Well, there's 2 ways to avoid it. One, the county can say, we're not gonna do anything.
That's
That'd be the biggest
wrong.
mistake.
The second one is Lenore City says, we've made a mistake, we're gonna de-annex.
That's it.
That's it now.
That's it.
We don't have the authority to rewrite TCA code, period.
Nope.
At all.
Well, I'm not arguing
And
that
we
point,
can-
I'm just saying
and we-
maybe forcing that hand,
And we can meet and talk,
that it doesn't.
but
We can
that,
stay out of court that way.
we don't have any, we can't just.
So we're gonna send a letter and then we vote on the 6th.
What we're gonna hear will be the opposite, from Lenore City will be the opposite of what we heard tonight. They're gonna plead the other side. I don't think we'll hear anything new.
There is no other side. There's
would you
nothing.
like to hear the other side? If there is another side, I mean,
Well,
this has
well,
not happened in forever,
The city
right?
attorney can tell our attorney.
Yeah.
Buddy, you said something about setting up a meeting. You set that meeting up and anybody that wants to attend can attend.
I'll be glad, I'll set it up.
Before February 6th.
Before February
We got, it's
6th.
3 weeks out, the way it
Yep.
falls.
Go for it.
But the letter
20
goes
days.
ASAP, Kyle.
And it's worth noting that Walter Johnson has not responded with any substantive defense he hasn't said, well, your letter's wrong because X, Y, and Z. The only thing he did was send this information and say, well, there was this LCUV condemnation back in 2007, which is inconsequential, in my opinion.
He doesn't have anything to stand on.
So, and that was when he reverted to, well, it's a political matter. It's not. It's a legal matter, black and white.
We had a crowd that night against this, standing at the podium one by one, so.
There are a number of property owners in that area, the Purcells, Rio, forget Rio's last name.
Valero.
They're very organized, and they're getting more organized to do whatever, and they're very intelligent and very well funded. So I think they're pretty committed to this cause.
I think we're in the trick box.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, anything else?
I know we're not, but I'm just saying so we can end this.
Anything else?
Thank you, folks, appreciate it.
Okay, have a good evening.
What could Loudon tell us that we already know?
I just think.
Turn that camera.
That sounds good.
And we fix something, see what it's gonna cost to do that.